sway British English, but now I love She Rules. The 70s were a golden age for music, but not every band made it into the history books. Today we're shining a light on 20 incredible groups from an era that slipped through the cracks, unjustly forgotten but never truly gone. Number 20, Badfinger. Day after day, what happens when talent, tragedy, and bad luck collide? Badfinger, once hailed as the next Beatles, faced a heartbreaking end. Fans still wonder what could have been if this Welsh band had stayed together. Signed in 1968, Badfinger was often compared to the Beatles thanks to their melodic hits like No Matter What and Baby Blue. Despite their initial success, the band faced a series of tragic events that led to their downfall. Singer Pete Ham's tragic passing in 1975 marked the beginning of the end, with Tom Evans and Mike Gibbons following soon after. The lone survivor, Joey Molland, has since pursued his solo career, but the legacy of Badfinger remains bittersweet. A band that perfectly blended catchy melodies with powerful guitar riffs, Badfinger was one of the early influences in the power pop genre of the 70s. Their music, guided by the mentorship of the Beatles, combined the best elements of pop and rock, setting them apart from their peers. With albums like No Dice, 1970, and Straight Up, 1971, they showcase their songwriting prowess and energetic performances. However, the financial collapse of their label, Apple Records, led to misfortune. Bad deals and legal battles took a toll, and while Wish You Were Here, 1974, proved they still had greatness left, the band's tragic end is a tale of what could have been. Number 19, The Runaways. But Now I Have My Dream Girl. What if one of the most influential all-female rock bands was torn apart before they reached their full potential? The Runaways, a force in the hard rock scene, lit up the stage but burned out far too soon. Formed in 1975, this Los Angeles-based group, led by Joan Jett and Lita Ford, broke barriers and gave us anthems like Cherry Bomb. But internal tensions and disagreements led to their breakup in 1979, leaving a void in the growing community of female rockers. The Runaways released 4 studio albums and a live album during their short run, with songs like Cherry Bomb, Hollywood, and Queens of Noise becoming cult classics. Their rebellious image and powerful sound made them sensations overseas, especially in Japan. However, creative differences split the group. Jett wanted to steer the band toward punk and glam rock, while Ford and others leaned toward hard rock and heavy metal. Unable to reconcile these differences, the Runaways performed their final concert on New Year's Eve 1978 at the Cow Palace and officially disbanded in April 19, 1979. Number 18, Joy Division. How does a band rise to legendary status after it's already too late? Joy Division's dark, haunting sound defined post-punk, yet tragedy struck before they could fully realize their potential. Formed in 1976, Joy Division quickly gained attention for their raw emotional music, but their trajectory was cut short when frontman Ian Curtis took his own life on the eve of their first American tour in 1980. The remaining members were formed as New Order, but Joy Division's influence remains unmatched. Their debut album Unknown Pleasures, 1979, was an instant classic, blending brooding lyrics with stark, minimalistic soundscapes. After Curtis's death, the band honored their agreement to disband if any member left. But ironically, their fame soared. Posthumous tracks like Love Will Tear Us Apart and the album Closer, 1980, cemented Joy Division's place as one of the most influential bands of their era. Number 17, Fleetwood Mac. Before the classic lineup that brought us Rumors, Fleetwood Mac's early days were marred by constant turmoil and missed opportunities. Fleetwood Mac, before their most famous lineup, initially disbanded in the late 70s after several changes in personnel and personal conflicts. Their early breakup led to a later reformation that would bring about some of their greatest successes. However, their initial spirit marked a lost era of music. Fleetwood Mac evolved into one of the greatest and most influential rock bands in the 70s and continues to carry on their legacy today. Beginning in 1967, the band attained its reputation over 36 years. Within those years came multiple scandals and rumors that amplified the band's quality of music and grew its fan base. Throughout the 20 years after its debut, the band grew in members and styles of music. The well-known and last variation of the band includes Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham, Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, and the late Christine McVie. With these members, the band quickly rose to greater fame than the original formation. In 1975, with the release of their hit self-titled album, they became superstars. One of the most notorious albums the band recorded, Rumors, was released in 1977 amidst band drama, enchanted the media, and earned the band additional fans. While recording this album, Nicks and Buckingham split after their long-term relationship. The McVies, who both participated in the band during this time, divorced. While Mick Fleet would finalize his own divorce, he and Nicks engaged in an affair that soon became public. Number 16, King Crimson. What happens when creativity clashes within a band known for pushing musical boundaries? King Crimson's innovative sound was ahead of its time, but internal strife ended their journey too soon. King Crimson, a pioneer of progressive rock, disbanded in 1974 after numerous lineup changes and musical directions. Their innovative music influenced many, but internal conflicts and creative differences halted their journey. The breakup left a legacy of pioneering music that continues to inspire. Their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King, 1969, remains their most commercially successful and influential release, with a potent mixture of jazz, classical, and experimental music. Following the sudden simultaneous departures of MacDonald and Giles, with Lake leaving very shortly afterward, the next two albums, In the Wake of Poseidon and Lizard, both 1970, were recorded during a period of instability in the band's lineup. King Crimson disbanded at the end of 1974. Number 15, Budgie. How did one of the most influential bands in British rock fly under the radar? Budgie might not be a household name, but their impact on heavy metal is undeniable. Another Welsh band, Budgie is often brought up in conversations about the new wave of British rock and heavy metal in the 1970s. They delivered 7 stellar albums in the 1970s, making them one of the most underrated rock bands of the era that have since disbanded. They kept rocking until 2010, when Burke Shelley had to be hospitalized for an aortic aneurysm. The band, a classic power trio with the occasional keyboard player, released 10 albums with MCA, A&M, and RCA between 1971 and 1982, attracting a fair number of fans and achieving modest commercial success. Number 14, Big Star. I Can Get Tickets to the Dance. What happens when critical acclaim doesn't translate into commercial success? Big Star may have been overlooked in their time, but their influence is monumental today. Big Star, led by Alex Chilton, was a seminal power pop band whose influence far exceeded their commercial success. Despite critical acclaim for albums like One Record, the band struggled with distribution issues and disbanded in the mid-70s. Their music, however, continues to inspire a vast array of musicians across genres. If the short-lived but fondly remembered Big Star could have experienced popular success in direct proportion to its posthumous influence, the rangy Memphis rock quartet would have lived up to its ambitious name, and then some. With the possible exception of the Velvet Underground, which enjoyed considerably more notoriety in its heyday, no other underground pop band has left such a lasting and indelible legacy. Although its original 4 members recorded only 1 album, 1 record, and the group was dissolving rapidly when the second, Radio City, was completed, those records have influenced countless 80s and 90s records on both sides of the Atlantic, from the Replacements and IEM to England's Primal Scream and Scotland's Teenage Fan Club. Although they have been packaged on a British import CD, this current reissue is the first time since their initial release that these albums have been available together in their entirety, including the previously deleted tracks in the Street and ST-106. Number 13, Wild Cherry. I Was Singer. How did a band from Ohio create one of the funkiest anthems of the 70s, only to disappear soon after? Wild Cherry may have been a one-hit wonder, but what a hit it was. No one knows how such fair-haired boy from Ohio steel country got their soul, but the joke wasn't lost on the band or its new international audience. The release of Play That Funky Music took the American rock and R&B top spots and went platinum in 1976. Rob Parisi, lead vocals and guitar, was raised in the steel mill town of Mingo Junction, Ohio. He graduated from Mingo High School in 1968 and formed the band Wild Cherry in 1970 in Steubenville, Ohio. The band's name, Wild Cherry, was taken from a box of cough drops. The band broke up in late 1979. Number 12, The Carpenters. Away. Little Johnny Jewel, 1975, and the much-touted debut album Marquee Moon, 1977, showcased extended guitar solos that found a place in a movement which generally rebelled against intricate musicianship. Guitarist Verlaine, who took his name from the French symbolist poet Paul Verlaine, and bassist Hell, his former boarding school roommate, formed the Neon Boys with drummer Ficker in New York City in the early 1970s. In 1973, guitarist Lloyd joined them, and as Television, they helped establish CBGB Omfug, a club in New York City's Bowery, as the epicenter of a burgeoning punk scene. Principal songwriter Verlaine delivered surreal lyrics with elasticity, stretching from somber declarations to unearthly squeals. What truly set Television apart from other punk and new wave groups was the improvisational interplay of Verlaine and Lloyd's guitars, borrowing from avant-garde jazz and psychedelic rock. Patti Smith, with whom Verlaine wrote poetry and on whose debut single he played, described his guitar playing as the sound of 1,000 bluebirds screaming. Released in 1977, Marquee Moon caused a stir among American critics, but sold much better in Britain, as did its more polished follow-up, Adventure, 1978. Prior to Marquee Moon, Hell left to form the Heartbreakers with ex-New York Doll Johnny Thunders, and later fronted the Voidoids. Television disbanded in 1978, reuniting briefly in 1992 for an eponymous album and tour. What happens when a band at the height of its success faces a sudden and tragic disaster? LYNYRD-SKYNYRD's legacy is forever marked by what might have been. The band defined Southern rock with their guitar-heavy music and rebellious spirit. Their career was tragically cut short by a plane crash in 1977 that killed several members, including lead vocalist Ronnie Van Zant. The band's abrupt end halted the progress of a promising musical legacy. LYNYRD-SKYNYRD, an American rock band, rose to prominence during the Southern rock boom of the 1970s on the strength of its triple guitar attack and gritty working-class attitude. Sweet Home Alabama, a response to Canadian singer-songwriter Neil Young's Southern Man, opened the band's sophomore effort, Second Helping, 1974. Young's song attacked the American South's racism, describing slavery and lynching and calling out white Christian hypocrisy. Van Zant, Rossington, and King wrote Sweet Home Alabama as a direct retort, objecting to what they deemed to be Young's condescension and use of Southern stereotypes. How does one song define an entire era? While its creators faded into obscurity, MS Pop Music was a massive hit that introduced a new sound, but their fame didn't last. A great 80s sonic precursor, M introduced its signature sound to the world with Pop Music, a catchy synth-heavy single that went to #1 in the final weeks of the 1970s, helping to usher in a new wave of music for a new decade. M was an English new wave and synth-pop music project from London led by Robin Scott. Musicians who contributed to M at one time or another included Wally Badarou, Mark King, Phil Gould, and Gary Barnacle of Level 42. M had 3 other singles that achieved a chart entry in the UK, Moonlight and Muzak, number 33 in December 1979. That's The Way the Money Goes, 45 in March 1980, and Official Secrets, number 64 in November 1980. M released 3 studio albums during their career, New York, London, Paris, and Munich, 1979, The Official Secrets Act, 1980, and Famous Last Words, mostly recorded in 1982 but not released in the UK until 2000. A 4th album, Robin Scott with Shakisha, was recorded in 1984 but wasn't released until 1998. What happens when a band masters the art of glam rock but struggles to shed a pop image? The Sweet gave us unforgettable hits, yet internal conflict led to their decline. Originally called The Sweet Shop, these unabashed early glam rockers boasted a hit catalog, including the chart-topping 1973 single Blockbuster and their bright leather pants. Sweet, a 70s British rock band that was part of the glam movement, got its start in 1965 with the band Wainwright's Gentlemen. Among its members were Mick Tucker and Ian Gillan, who later joined Deep Purple. Gillan left the band and was eventually replaced by vocalist Brian Connolly in January 1968. Connolly and Tucker left the band and formed their own, calling it The Sweet Shop. Bass player Steve Priest joined them, as did guitarist Frank Torpey. The band developed a following on the pub circuit and was soon signed to Fontana Records. Since another band already had the name The Sweet Shop, they shortened it to The Sweet. They recorded a single, Slow Motion, but it went nowhere, and Fontana dropped them. Torpey left the band. They kept playing for the next few years, building a following and going through several personnel and management changes. In 1971, they finally had a hit with Funny Funny. Tensions had been building with their songwriting and management team. The band was unhappy with the bubblegum image they were being cast in and their reputation as just a lightweight pop band. How does a doo-wop revival band go from Woodstock to TV stardom, only to fade into nostalgia? Shaw NANA's wild ride brought them from rock history to pop culture. Most groups would call playing Woodstock and appearing in the 70s' biggest musical film, Grease, a successful career. But that was just the beginning for this New York-based throwback act, whose hit TV series ran 4 seasons and proved, in 1981, the world still needed doo-wop. Billing themselves as from the streets of New York, members were frequently outfitted in gold lame or leather jackets and sported pompadours. The group's name was taken from a series of nonsense syllables, sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na-na, in the song Get a Job, originally recorded by the Silhouettes. Sha-na-na released their last regular album in 2006, although they subsequently released compilation albums. As of December 5, 2022, they announced they would no longer tour. What happens when a supergroup's potential is derailed by personal demons? Derek and the Dominos gave us Layla, but their story ended too soon. The group came about through its 4 members' involvement in the American Soul Revue Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. Anchored by the musical duo Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett, with a rotating ensemble of supporting members, the group supported Blind Faith, Eric Clapton's short-lived supergroup with Steve Winwood, on a U.S. tour in the summer of 1969. While on that tour, Clapton was drawn to Delaney and Bonnie's relative anonymity, which he found more appealing than the excessive fan worship lavished on his own band. Derek and the Dominos, created by Eric Clapton, was short-lived but left behind the timeless hit Layla. After just 1 album, personal tragedies and Clapton's battles with addiction led to the band's dissolution. Their brief period of activity ended with a legacy that continues to resonate with blues and rock enthusiasts. What happens when a band breaks up at the peak of their powers? The Jam was one of Britain's most influential punk bands, but their story ended abruptly. At the forefront of the punk rock movement in Britain, blending rock, R&B, and punk into a distinctive sound, the Jam was led by Paul Weller. The band split at the height of their popularity in 1982, leaving fans desiring more of their sharply crafted songs and energetic performances. Formed in 1973 in Woking, near London, the Jam gained popularity in the English club circuit. Their energetic shows and sound drew comparisons with The Who, and that band's influence is evident in the Jam's first album, In the City, 1977, which solidified the group's guitar-based, drums-heavy lineup. Later records, particularly All Mod Cons, 1978, and Setting Suns, 1979, reflected more influences, including the Kinks, the Beatles, Motown, and soul. Those albums also showcase the band's growing social awareness with politically charged songs such as Down in the Tube Station at Midnight, about xenophobic violence, and Eton Rifles, steeped in class conflict. Always a distinctly English band in both outlook and lyrics, the Jam never gained international popularity to match their success in the UK, where they were huge stars. Songwriter and driving force Weller was, for a time, regarded as a spokesman for his generation. The Jam broke up in 1982 as Weller went on to form the Style Council and later embarked on a solo career. What happens when a band's raw honesty sets the stage for punk rock, but ends before they hit the big time? The Modern Lovers' impact outlasted their short-lived existence. Led by Jonathan Richman, they were pivotal in the development of punk rock with their minimalist style and forthright lyrics. Featuring Richman and bassist Ernie Brooks, with drummer David Robinson, later The Cause, and keyboardist Jerry Harrison, later Talking Heads, they disbanded before their debut album was officially released, an album that later became a cult classic. The band's breakup deprived the punk scene of a uniquely introspective voice. Their sound owed much to the Velvet Underground and the Stooges, and is now often classified as proto-punk. Their only album, The Modern Lovers, contained idiosyncratic songs about dating awkwardness, growing up in Massachusetts, love of life, and the USA. Between 1976 and 1988, Richman used the name Modern Lovers for various backing bands, always billed as Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. These later bands were quieter and featured more low-key, often childlike songs, as Richman drew on folk rock and other genres. Of the original members, Only Robinson was part of any later incarnations. What happens when a band ignites a cultural revolution but burns out just as quickly? The Sex Pistols' chaotic rise and fall are the stuff of legend. They burst onto the music scene with raw energy that epitomized the punk rock movement of the late 1970s. The song God Save the Queen became a symbol of the United Kingdom's social and political turmoil. The original members were vocalist Johnny Rotten, guitarist Steve Jones, drummer Paul Cook, and bassist Glenn Matlock. Later, Sid Vicious replaced Matlock. Despite their profound impact, they disbanded after just one album. Never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. Their breakup left fans yearning for more rebellious anthems and anti-establishment ethos. Thrown together in September 19th, 1975 by manager Malcolm McLaren to promote Sex, his London clothing store, the Sex Pistols began mixing 1960s English pop, the Small Faces, the Who, with 1970s rock renegades like Iggy and the Stooges and the New York Dolls. By summer 1976, they had an avid fan base and successfully updated the mod energies for the nihilistic mood of the 70s. Heavily stylized, media-savvy, and ambitious, they became leaders of the teenage movement dubbed punk by the British press. Their first single, Anarchy in the UK, was both a call to arms and a national address. After profanity-laced TV appearances in December 19th, 1976, the band was dropped by EMI in January 19th, 1977. Their next contract with A&M Records was severed after only a few days. A short, disastrous U.S. tour led to their split in January 1978 following a final show in San Francisco. Attempts to keep the Sex Pistols going with a film project, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, 1980, featured recordings with the increasingly uncontrollable Vicious on vocals. A cover of Eddie Cochran's Come On Everybody became their best-selling single. Vicious died of a heroin overdose in February 19th, 1979 while out on bail for the alleged murder of girlfriend Nancy Spungen. That same month, McLaren was sued by Rotten, and the Sex Pistols disappeared into receivership, only to be revived years later after a 1986 court case restored control of their affairs to the band. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this nostalgic ride, smash that like button and subscribe for more music history content. Don't stop here. Check out our other videos for more deep dives into the golden age of rock. Keep the music alive.